Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to the World Class Community Show, where we invite expert community builders to share their experiences, knowledge, and expertise they've built up through the years. And today we got an amazing guest. We got Jeff Lovejoy, and he's head of talent acquisition at Zalando, where he manages the Future Zalent community. Community full of interns, working students, apprentices, and graduates starting at Zalando. Before he was launching careers at Zalando, Jeffery works at SumUp, N26, FDM Group, and Enterprise Rent a Car, where he started many careers since 2002. After graduating from University of West Florida, Jeff has been a vital part of building many communities throughout the years, and this is why we love to welcome him here today. So welcome, Jeff, in the World Class Community Show.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so we have a quick icebreaker to start the conversation, and it's to get to know you a little bit more personally. And this is, what community are you part of that's unique?
I think actually one of the communities that I'm a part of that is unique is actually a community that I've created myself with some of my friends that also sit within the recruitment industry. So it's a community that we've kind of put together on WhatsApp. Jokingly, we call ourselves the Three Amigos, but it's just actually a way for us to connect, not just as friends, but also as industry experts when it comes to recruitment. To share ideas, bounce ideas off each other, but also support each other within each of our career growths as we change careers or we get promoted within our career or just essentially need career advice. And that little community group has been going for many years. I think probably, maybe like 8 years now, I think.
Wow.
And actually it's just been, for me, vital for my own personal growth as I've made these big, bold moves going from the UK to Scotland, back to London, to coming over to Germany.
Wow, that's amazing. And the Three Amigos is a really good name. Are you actually with three,
Yeah.
or is it just a big group?
Well, we're actually three. We've had people come and go in between, but we call ourselves the Three Amigos. So I think it just shows, when you talk about community, does it have to be 20, 30, 40 people? I think sometimes when you look at community, sometimes a little small community is just as important as being part of some of the bigger pictures as well.
Yeah, that's great insights on that. So let's dive a little bit deeper in your Zalando community. So you've been a talent acquisition manager for years now. Um, what does the job mean, or what does it actually mean to be a talent acquisition manager? And how did you roll into that industry?
Yeah, so I've been in early careers recruitment for about 15 years, working very closely with universities to find the right talent for the organization and attract the best of the best talent, most importantly. Really getting embedded in the universities, building strong relationships with the career services, student organizations. And I've been doing that through when I first went to London in 2008, started a journey when I was at Enterprise Rent a Car, where I already was with Enterprise 6 years prior to that back in the States. And actually that just kind of evolved from there, where I found where, when you look at return on investment and the time you spend working with different partners, student organizations, is actually building a sense of community, both external and internal, I found vital for the success of the business, but also for the success and growth of those a part of the community. And that's kind of where it all kind of started when I was at Enterprise Rent a Car, and then it moved on to FDM Group, and then really just started kicking off when I came to the whole startup scene and making that move going from London into N26. When I joined N26, I was hired to build out their future talent programs. They didn't have anything. They always hired interns or working students, but there was no kind of strategy behind it, a focus, the investment piece, and they really wanted me to build that out. And that's where I really started deep diving into that community. And one of the first steps I took was, all right, how do we bring all of these interns together into one community, mostly to find out how are things going? When you're building out an early careers program, you need to speak to those a part of it. And that was my first step, is like letting them know that, I'm here for you. Let's create a community, a safe space for you to talk to each other. And that's where we started putting together, the different Slack channels. We use Google here at Zalando, which I've done the same thing, and just really built it out. When I put that first group together at N26 and then repeated it at SumUp and Zalando, it wasn't me dictating it. I brought the community together to find out, okay, what do you want? How do you want to be a part of the community? How do you want this community to support you? And I think, when building out these community programs, it shouldn't come down from the big corporate giant, like, all right, we're doing this and this is what you need to be a part of. It's more of, what do you want? What do you want to be called? At Zalando, we came up with the name Future Zalents instead of Future Talents. We like to put the Z's in things. And, again, that's just something that came from the interns, from that community of like, this is what we want to be called. And then we built out the community. There's no managers a part of that community. It's only strictly our interns, apprentices, entry-level graduates, and working students. And it's them. So it's a community built by interns for the interns. All I do as a manager and my team do is just help keep conversations going. We're there to answer any questions they have. But even I have 3 interns on my team, and their responsibility is actually driving content onto that community channel, so helping support. We advertise our meetups. We celebrate people that get full-time contracts at the end when they get converted. We welcome new members to the community in. We do university events like, hey, does anyone want to join us? So it's just really keeping that active. And I remember speaking at a conference recently, and somebody asked, how do you actually keep that active? I've tried to start a community channel and just died. And I think it's the main thing is because it's the organization that's trying to drive the community versus letting the community drive the community. And I think that's the key to success in building out these communities.
Yeah, it's very clear that your experience in this is very extensive. I really love the words you said from the interns. So top down it's very difficult to set up a community, but you still have this pivotal role or this crucial role in keeping the conversation going. This is what I read from how do you monitor if the engagement is high enough? Do you look at data, or do you say like, well, there has been a long time no posts, let's do something? Or
yeah, so I have to admit my time at N26 and SumUp was cut short, unfortunately, because of Corona, which is what led me here to Zalando, and I've been at Zalando since July. One of the things we're doing is what we introduce as surveys. Just trying to get some more feedback from the community, like how do you, is there anything you want or anything that's missing in that community, and how can we support? When we first set up the community at Zalando, and actually similar, what we did at Zalando, at SumUp is, we wanted them to feel a part of something bigger. When you're looking at an early talent community, interns, students in general, they're not made to work independently on their own. They are meant to work with others around them. They're used to being at university, working on group projects. They just want to feel that they're bigger. There's a bigger picture here. They're part of a bigger community, a wider organization. So one of the things we did to really bring that together was based on feedback from that community is creating like hoodies or beanies and stuff like that. So because they wanted to create awareness in the organization that like, hey, we're here every day just like everybody else, even though we're only here on a 6-month internship or 3-month internship or as an apprentice or working student. We want you to recognize the talent that's in the organization, even when it's us from as interns or students. So that's why we created the hoodies where they had their own, it says Future Zalent down the sleeve. And it's just a way, like when you're in an organization that is this particularly like SumUp N26 and Zalando, where there's open floor plans, where when we say, okay, the first Wednesday of every month, everyone that's going into the office wear your hoodies. And just when you look across the floor and all of a sudden you see these hoodies saying Future Zalent or Future Talent, it actually reminds the senior leadership team like, oh yeah, oh my God, look at all these interns. I didn't realize we had so many. And at Zalando, we have over 200 interns and students working for us. So it's just a way to build that recognition and give the right recognition to that community for the efforts they deliver on a day-to-day basis for your organization.
Wow, 200 members. I didn't know there was so many. Is it like a flowing community? Is it like as long as you're an intern, you stay in it, or is it like an alumni program for historical future Zalents?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So one of the things we're starting to implement now that, I've been here, I'll be a year in jail in July. We're seeing the data come through. We're seeing people getting converted. So now it's like, okay, well, you're still a part of the wider community, but we're now going to separate that and start a new community this summer, which will be our alumni. That way we can have the alumni still supporting each other in their long-term career growth. Now transitioning from what was a part-time contract or a short-term contract to now a full-time employee, so they can support each other in that transition officially. But then that way we can separate and see who are our alumni, who are our active interns or students, and then that allows some networking and mentoring and support as well. So I think there's two communities that are starting to branch out. And again, this is feedback where it came out in a survey where interns are like, okay, I've already got a full-time contract. I'm still part of the community, the wider community, but what about the alumni? What about those that have made that transition to full-time afterwards at the end of their contract? So that's our kind of generation 2.0 that's coming soon at Zalando.
Okay, really cool. It sounds like a large-scale Three Amigos, actually.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, we had, when I say over 200 interns and students, most of our interns come in for 6 months. We have working students. Some working students have been with us for over 2 years because they started in their first year at university and they stayed with us. Our apprenticeship program is 3 years long. So we do see a lot of longevity within that community as well.
Okay, super cool. How does this community help you build the brand? Does it, okay, it's very good to keep awareness and attract the young talent, but does it also help the Zalando brand, this community?
Absolutely. I think it helps the organization, I think it creates that awareness that there's a bigger picture. You're not just applying for an internship to jump into an organization and just be an intern. The word gets out that come join Zalando because you become part of a community, a wider community of supports to really help you in that fast growth development and transition from university to work so that you have a higher probability of converting at the end of it. Because every student that comes into Zalando has that mindset, like, I really want to work for Zalando. I know I'm only here for 6 months. I want to make the biggest impact as possible. So I have a higher probability of converting to a full-time role afterwards and really kind of establish myself with a strong personal brand, show that I can deliver on the needs and the impact that I'm making. So, them having that support is like, okay, if I'm looking at different job offers, I'm going to join Zalando because I have this amazing community and this community of support that's driven by students for the students to help with that future growth and that transition. And I think that's the brand, right? That's what really attracts students. When you look at surveys that are done to the graduate market and what are some of the things that people are looking for when they choose the employer, always in top three is personal development. And I feel like that community is that personal development piece. That yes, organizations can also offer all of these personal development sessions that you can take, but where's the community, that support that helps you grow in your careers? It's kind of like, I like using the phrase, learn with us, grow with us, so come learn with us, develop as much as possible, and continue to grow with us as we're growing the organization.
Okay, that's great. I am always surprised by how structured and strategical these communities are built. And of course, they start from a good idea and they start from a great vision, like you explained, like grow with us, learn with us. But you can see that this is on a very high level, very organized, very structured. It is by interns for interns. But on the other hand, it is also a crucial part in the recruitment strategy of Zalando and all these companies before. So what I wanted to ask is, you've worked Zalando. Maybe N26 is the biggest startup vibe. I know Zalando has the same culture, but how would you compare it to enterprise rent a car in the whole future talent community building? Are there different styles?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So I think the distinct difference between the two here is that Enterprise Rent-A-Car and also FDM Group are very corporate organizations compared to the startup scene, right? And I think, when you're in that startup scene, there's a little bit more flexibility as far as like how you could build the community and grow the community. And obviously that support in that community and helping that transition from university work is super important, particularly in the startup scene, because the startup scene is hectic. And I speak to thousands of students every year, and I tell them, look, there's this desire and passion, like there's this sexy thing of joining a startup that, this is what students want to do. Like, oh, if I get a part of a startup and then they go to market and I have shares that I can retire early, there's, I think, this kind of mindset. But with startups, they're growing. They're also still learning. And I think if you're a student that needs a lot of structure on your day to day, then startup is not the scene for you. And this is why I think the community aspect is important, because it helps you with that. It helps you understand that startup scene, that mentality that, you're going to ask yourself, what do you mean there isn't a process for this? It's because it's a new organization versus your corporate organizations are very established, right? In the community, I think it's a little bit different. So the community within Enterprise Rent-A-Car that we had was very internal, and it was more of supporting for promotion opportunities, seeking mentorship, because Enterprise Rent-A-Car's graduate program is very unique in that it's 100% promotion from within. So I started on Enterprise graduate program as a management trainee, learning all the aspects of how to run a business and promoting very quickly internally, where I was assistant manager in just a year. I was a branch manager in less than 2 years. And then I managed several branches across Southern California before going over to the UK. And that community from within helped me develop and lean on each other in that way. And how do I get that promotion from a very kind of, I guess it's hard to explain, it was very corporate. But then you also had student communities. So I was out marketing universities, and it's actually was me, how do I become a part of your community? So looking at the different clubs and societies at universities, like the LGBTQI or the African Caribbean Society, or how do we get people involved in the women in leadership groups, and like, so it's actually us as an employer asking to be a part of their community. And then also, once you're a part of that other community, you can help and support that community to grow further. So I think it was two different concepts when you look at communities from what was a little bit more corporate. But one of the things I did when I was managing recruitment for Scotland and Northern Ireland is that I tried, it's very difficult. I'm recruiting for Northern Ireland, I'm recruiting for Scotland, but everyone was joining the same program for the same group. So how do we bring those two very different backgrounds together into one community? And that was about, coming together in a WhatsApp group just for all of the interns, again, to support each other. So we used WhatsApp a lot when I was in Scotland to kind of help connect people together. Because even like those in Northern Ireland, we wanted them to still be a part of the bigger picture because they were being managed from corporate in Scotland.
Okay. So we dabbled a little bit in how you attract new people to the community. Said you became active in their communities to attract them to your community. Is this the only way, or do you have other organized systems to attract more talent to Zalando or N26 or wherever you worked?
Well, I think it's about, creating the brand. And I think that's important. So, when we go to market saying, come to Zalando because we're the destination of choice for graduates, that's in my head, my vision of where I want, as I'm growing the program here at Zalando, where I want to position Zalando. So if you go and ask any student at a university in Europe that we work with, who do you really want to work for? We want Zalando to be in that top 3 to really elevate Zalando as that destination of choice. But we're not doing that as using the community to do that. We're using that as, let's build the brand. Let's get some, some podcasts or, some little blog writing from our interns talking about what life is like in Zalando. And when they're writing and talking about that life in Zalando, they're talking about the community. So and I think it's important not to use the community in that aspect of like really driving people straight to the community. And that's what we need to sell to the students. Let the students talk and tell their stories about all the amazing things going on at Zalando. Community will automatically fall into that. And as students read that, they will start seeing that attractiveness to want to work for Zalando. So I don't know. I think using the community of like join Zalando because we just have this community is like the wrong message I want to get out. community is something that should happen naturally and organically, and not something that should be forced out to market from the organization. And that's one of the things I try to be very careful with when still, developing and growing and engaging in the community that we have in Zalando.
Hey, nice. Are there rules in the community? Do you have like strict rules? Like, okay, maybe the chat groups or whatever it is. Are there like written or unwritten rules?
I think it's a good question when it's rules. I don't want to be I hate using the word dictator in this community, but I think it's important that we keep eyes on conversations going on in the community. But I want the community, and those are part of it, to feel comfortable about talking about things. So there has been things written in the community about benefits, or I think it's unfair because they don't have access to this and stuff. And actually, I have to remember that I'm their voice, I'm their advocate. So if I hear this or see this information, I can then take that and get answers for them. And I think that's what they appreciate, is that if they write something, they are going to get an answer to it. So as a result, they're not using it as a venting tool. They're using it as let me flag this tool. So we haven't seen anything where it's like people just having, I hate this, or I can't believe this, and blah, blah. It's never been used in that way. It's just more of like, hey, kind of think this is unfair, or hey, I'm not sure. My manager asked me to do this. I'm not sure if it's fair. What do y'all think? And this gives me an opportunity as a leader in the organization to really address those concerns actually publicly, so everyone knows the answer and everyone can actually learn from that. Whether it's right or wrong, we need to be able to support and give the right messaging out to those students. So there kind of is an unwritten. Obviously, I have control to delete something if something does come across very horrific. But I think there hasn't been a need for that at all.
Okay, so we talked a little bit at the Community 2.0 at the Alumni Program. Where do you see this Future Zalent, or whatever the whole community of Zalando is? Where do you see it evolve in the near and far future?
It's a good question. So I think, do I have a direction of where I want the community to evolve to? Not really, because like I said, it's for the community, driven by the community. So whatever happens and how the community grows, I want it to be organic. I want it to naturally evolve into that direction. So, maybe giving it some steering a little bit to keep within the lines, but, I really want them to have control because it's their community. My interns are helping support the community in its growth. So I want to leave it for it to evolve and how it should evolve. All right. Because again, I don't want it to show like I'm the big corporate, I'm the big manager. This is how I want to drive the community because it's my community, because it's not. I just happen to be a part of it and help support it. It's really, at the end of the day, the students' community.
Okay. And did it inspire other groups of people in Zalando to start up their own communities?
Yeah, I mean, we actually, it's funny enough, I had this conversation before where everyone loves what we're doing, in the Future Zalent community, because we even organize meetups, which is a part of that community. So it's really important as we're building this out. It's not just about being online, it's about coming together as a group as well. So once or twice a quarter, we try to do a meetup somewhere. We just did one a couple weeks ago. It was the first one this year. So COVID's kind of restricted us in that way. But now that COVID restrictions have eased, we're making sure that we try to get the community together even more. We had about 64 join last time, and everyone's just like amazed. Had such an amazing experience. There were interns that met each other that worked in the same team, but actually never physically met each other. So it was just good to bring everyone together. And as a result, people are like, hey, Jeff, what are you doing in the community? And I think there's other departments in the organization that are actually looking at how to do this. I was recently asked, even within our wider talent acquisition team, of, how can I support in bringing all the TAs at Zalando together into one community? At the moment, we have a tech TA team, we have a commercial TA team, we have candidate experience, we have employer branding, we have our sourcing teams, we have early careers team. So like, how do we kind of bring all these teams together into one community where we talk to each other, we organize meetups like, hey, I'm going to the office today. Is anyone else going to the office? And I think the more you do that, it just really builds that kind of fun environment to be working in.
I think it's like a really next layer on the whole workplace. not only the strict structure you have with your manager or department, but like intertwined communities where you can open discuss and improve each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many, different areas within just talent acquisition. And actually, we all work together, but not all the time, right? So just having everyone come together, it just allows us to get to know each other. I mean, God, we have over 100 talent acquisition support here at Zalando. So do we know absolutely everybody? No, so the more we do this, the more we start bringing everyone together, particularly in a time where majority of those in TA over the last 2 years or so, like have recently joined, and they've joined in this remote environment. So if you're looking at starting a community now more than ever is the time to actually do it, because you've probably had so many people in your organization start remotely. And if you're trying to integrate back into the offices, having this community can actually help support the culture that you're trying to drive within the organization.
Yeah, that's a really good vision on things, because of course a lot of companies are struggling with bringing everybody together around the company, around the culture. And top down, it's very difficult to do this if you can't get the people together. And these communities are doing it themselves, are connecting each other from each other. I think it's really, I've never thought about it in this way. So thanks, Jeff, for the insight. I really like it. Did you already do you get approached by other companies who say, wow, I love what you're doing at Zalando. How could we build a talent acquisition community?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've spoken at a couple conferences and a couple here in Berlin recently. And actually, at the end of the presentation, one of the main questions I get asked is around the community. How do we do it? How do you keep the longevity of it and keep the energy of it without it kind of fizzing away? And so I've been asked a lot by different organizations of what exactly that I've done over the years within all my organizations, because I think if you're going to start building out a community within your organization, you can't just, it's not like an off the shelf kind of like, okay, here's all the instructions on how to do it. You got to really kind of form and build it unique for you and your organization. But again, you not being the one driving it, it's like, who do you want the community to be for? And let them come together. Let them figure out like how they want the community to look and feel. How do they want to engage with it? And then support them in building it out and launching it.
Okay, that's great. So this means you don't have any KPIs for the community.
No, this is not I don't do KPIs for community. That's not what it's about. It's not about me trying to hit a target or anything like that. I just want that safe space for them. When you're looking at early career talents coming out of university, that transition into your first big internship at a place like Zalando or SumUp or N26, it's a big deal for them. And they want to transition and make a really good, strong impression, right? And this community really helps them do that. And that's the bigger picture for me is seeing the success of those that join the community and just watching naturally their careers blossom because of the support the community provides. But there's no way I would never put any KPIs around that community. That's not what it's for.
Great. So if there's one thing that people should definitely remember from our conversation today, what would you like to tell the world about communities?
For your community, by your community. That's super important. That's the main thing I want to take away is that you as an organization are not the driving force of this communication. You're the support. Let those that you want to be in a community, let them form it. Let them come up with their own ideas, even design their own logo for the community. So we actually put out a little exercise a couple weeks ago saying, hey, we really want our own Future Zalent logo that we want to use externally, we want to use internally. Let's hear your ideas for any of those that have passions for design and want to come up and be creative and come up with a logo for our Future Zalent community. Please submit. And we actually had some amazing, lovely submissions last week of those that have come up with their own logos. And again, it's them. It's a logo developed for the community by the community. So I think if anything, don't be the driving seat, be the supporter and let them develop the community how they want it to be.
Wow, I love this vision. I'm really curious how the logo looks now. Will it be released or is it for inside the community?
It's not released yet. We've sent it off for approval. So it has to go through, obviously, the Zalando branding guidelines. And we submitted and gave them all that information. And actually, there are some really, really clever ideas that once it's actually selected, then we want to do our next round of maybe not necessarily hoodies this time, but actually want to look at maybe making T-shirts because we're getting closer to summer, and then we could go back to hoodies again in the winter, and actually using that logo to be on the T-shirt, which is fantastic.
Wow, super cool. And then we have one final question that we give every guest. So, Jeff,
Yeah.
if you were hired by a startup or a new brand that nobody knows right now, and you have to create a community from scratch in less than 30 days, how would you do it? How would you approach it?
The first thing I would actually do is run a survey through the organization just to find out, like, well, what community do we need, and what do they want? So I think that's where I would look the most. Is it a diversity community? Is it an early career community? Is it a tech community? Is it a women in tech community? So I think that's what I would try to find out first, going into a new organization. Probably just maybe hire their first 50 people, got their first funding round maybe, and they want to build a community. Well, let me just not just make one just to make one. Why do we want to make one? Which community should it be? Who should be a part of it? Who wants to be a part of it? And just kind of run a survey for that way to get a better idea of what we should put together.
Wow, that's a great answer. So thank you, Jeff, for this amazing conversation. I really think you're very inspirational. You really are building an amazing community at Zalando and all the places you used to work. I'm sure that the people that are part of it are really proud to be Future Zalent, and I'm sure that it's going to get bigger and bigger, and people are going to get more involved. I think certainly in this episode, you will have inspired a lot of people to build their own communities, and you've given them the great first step how to do it internally. So thank you,
absolutely.
Jeffrey.
Thank you. No, thank you, Niles. Thank you, Sunday, for asking me to be a part of this. It was so much fun. If anyone has any questions, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. We're happy to always have a chat when it comes to communities.
Yeah, and if they know people who want to join the Future Zalent program, one address.
Yes, please visit our career site at Zalando. Use the advanced search function and go straight to intern students and see what opportunities we have. We're posting new roles every single week. So if there's not something there now, keep checking because there could be something there in the future. I would love to see you come and join Zalando in our Future Zalent programs.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.